Okay, I would like to welcome everybody to tonight's Select Board meeting. I have to look at the agenda to make sure I say it right. It's Tuesday, January 21st. I hope everybody was like me today and thought it was Monday all day. Anyway, you found your way here tonight, so I want to welcome everyone. We're going to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so everybody please stand, okay? I
pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll start the meeting by granting Westwood Media Center permission to record the meeting. And what we do at these meetings is we ask if anybody else is recording, because if they are, we just want to acknowledge it and give permission. Okay, nobody else is. This is a special night because we have guests here with us tonight, and it's not very often we get a room full of children at a select board meeting. So this is a really nice night. So we have with us here student council members from Martha Jones Elementary School. So welcome everybody who's here with them. So I understand you guys did something really nice. Who wants to tell us what you did? Is there anybody who's going to come? Are you brave enough to come sit at the table here? Because we like to get it recorded. Who wants to come sit at the table? Go ahead. Yeah. Do you want to come up and sit with them? It's good to have friends. Come on up. Okay. So, you want to tell us what you did?
We agreed that when we changed our motto, we needed a new mascot or logo. We opened the opportunity to do that for the whole school. We gave the whole school a chance to do that, to make up a logo or a mascot.
Mm-hmm. And?
Made the mugs I see you have on the table.
Yep. You made those?
Yeah. Well, we made the things inside of it.
Good. I like that correction. I was going to say, good job, but good job. And?
So we got the mugs and we all wrote down notes to the people who helped the town of Westwood, and we set them up and delivered them to people around the town.
That is so amazing. And we were so impressed when we heard about that on this board that we wanted to have you come in so we could say thank you, because we're very lucky. We have a lot of really nice men and women who work for this town. Do you know what kind of jobs they have, the people who work for the town? Go ahead.
Some can be dangerous because...
No, the good people who work for the town.
Oh.
So who works for the town?
Like firefighters and crossing guards and police
Who greets
officers.
you at school every morning? Your
Teachers.
Aren't they the best? Yeah. And policemen?
Yeah.
And the guys who drive the trucks who get the snow off the roads?
Yep.
So I think your coming in and thanking all those people was really nice, because they don't often get thanked. So I know they should, shouldn't they? So it's our turn to say thank you to you for doing that, because yeah, it's really nice to think of people when you don't really have to. So I want to show everybody, they wrote these beautiful notes to people, colored them in, right? Beautiful pictures, a nice little Christmas tree. That was really sweet. And I want to tell you guys, you're really good speakers for your school. No wonder you're student council members. It's very clear why. So what grade are you in?
Third.
Oh my goodness.
Fourth.
And?
Fifth.
What a team. Well, to Mrs. Tobin, where are you? Your principal. You've got a nice group of people.
Thank you.
And we want to say thank you to...
Motto to kindness, I think is what we were trying to say.
Right, I wanted to hear about the motto.
What we wanted to do was really share kindness.
Oh.
Isn't that a nice thing to do?
Yep.
It's a lot better than being mean, isn't it? Yeah. But that's a good motto for Martha Jones, because it's a really nice school. My kids went there.
Madam Chair, if I could just say on behalf
Yes.
of the team, thank you very much. This really kicked off our holiday season, and it really put us into a spirit of giving. So thank you very much, all of you.
And so we want to applaud you. So to your moms and dads, good job. These are really great kids, and I know all the kids at Martha Jones School are as well. So thank you for coming in. We do a lot of work at this meeting.
Photo op.
Huh?
We're having a photo op?
No, too many, too much. We do a lot of work at this meeting, and some of it can get kind of boring, so you don't have to stay. We talk about money, and we talk about good things like maybe building a new school in Westwood. We're going to do that tonight. So sometimes we're on TV and you can see us, but we're really happy you could come in.
When?
When?
When are you on TV?
Right now.
Right now. We're on TV.
So there's a man in that
Channel
room.
42 on Verizon.
So what? Okay, that's what
Okay.
he was asking. Okay, we'll do that. Let me just read something. So we have what we call a commendation, and when people come in and we say thank you to them, we often send them home with something. So this says, whereas Martha Jones students of Westwood, Massachusetts are recognized for their hospitality and generosity, whereas the students took the initiative to start a gifting project aimed at giving back to those who work in their immediate community, whereas the group of students traveled to every municipal building to thank all employees and give them surprise thank you notes and winter gifts, be it resolved that the town of Westwood officially recognize and congratulate these Martha Jones students of Westwood on this accomplishment. And the three of us who are elected to lead the town want to say thank you, and we'll give you this, and you can put this up at school.
Thank you very much. What do you
Yeah.
say, boys and girls?
Thank you.
Okay, you want to do a picture? Your principal would like us to do a picture. And Michael would like to do a picture.
I think it's always better over here.
All right, let's do it. Brandon, if you want to get in, they can get in too. Come on, Charlie, you can get in. You want to get in, Zoe? All right, you want to get in and I'll take your picture? Stand around. Sure? Come on, get in. I'll take the picture, I promise. We'll get somebody to take a picture for you. You want to jump in? You get it? No, I don't want to get in. Stay there. Who can't I get? I can't get Catherine. Catherine, let's see you. There it is. Perfect.
Oh, my name.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very good.
All right.
Never missed a photo op. Come on.
A little crowded, but not too crowded. Okay, thank you guys. We have to get back to work.
Thank you.
Good night.
I actually prefer the
Okay, we're going to continue the meeting. Our next item on the agenda is another update, and this update concerns the Gay Street Sidewalk Project. This is an update on a meeting coming up that we want to let the community know about. It will take place at 7 p.m. on February 4th in this room. So again, February 4th, day of the week, that is the Monday? Somebody tell me, is that
Say in a
Monday?
second.
It is a Tuesday, I believe.
Tuesday, thank you.
It is a Tuesday.
Tuesday, February 4th.
Haven't rolled my calendar forward yet. February 4th is a Tuesday, 7 p.m., the Gillette Meeting Room. This will be hosted by the Department of Public Works and Tech Engineering. It is a public meeting. The presentation that night will focus on the final design of the Gay Street Sidewalk Project. This will allow for residents to view the most current benchmarks of the project, including the locations of the sidewalk throughout the entire Gay Street corridor. And just so people remember, we've had meetings back in April of 2019, a couple of meetings. I think there was something later than that, but maybe that was the last one. And the design went from 75% complete, Brendan? Yep. To now 100%, but it is still available for review and input. Correct. Thank you. Okay, so that's that for the updates. Our next item on the agenda is a change of officers at the restaurant Smashburger over on University Avenue. Nora, would you like to come up? So we have in our materials that the corporate officers are being changed at the Smashburger LLC. It's called Smashburger Acquisition-Boston LLC, doing business as Smashburger. And the changes are as follows. Thomas Ryan to be removed as CEO. Is there not a new CEO coming in?
Not that we've been informed.
Okay, and then adding Carl Backman as president and Tyrone Luffman as SVP and general counsel.
That's right. And neither of those will have ownership interest in the business.
No ownership interest, and they have been quarried, and
They have
that's all
successfully
fine.
quarried. Yes.
Any other outstanding items before we
No,
approve this?
no
Everything
concerns
else
at
is in
all.
order?
yes.
Okay, any questions from the board?
No, it was approved by our alcohol committee.
Yes, our
Okay,
Alcohol Review Committee approved.
thank you.
Okay.
So I move that we approve the request for Smashburger Acquisition Boston LLC, doing business as Smashburgers, for the change of corporate officers, first to remove Thomas R. Ryan as CEO and add Carl J. Bachman as president and Tyrone Luffman as SVP and general counsel. Approval is contingent upon the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, the ABCC's final approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. And Nora, just stay for a moment. Procedurally, we have on our agenda a discussion of Courtyard, Boston, Dedham, Westwood, to update their all alcohol license.
Yes.
And we have been asked, it's not a public hearing, but we've been asked to hold off on reviewing that until some
Yes.
new
We received
paperwork
a
is
request
received.
this morning. They'd like to change their manager for the alcohol and restaurant service to their new general manager that
Oh,
they've
okay.
hired. So they want to complete new paperwork. The woman who is in place now,
Yes.
under the current license, is actually staying with the company throughout the transition, but will not be the
Okay.
manager under the new ownership. So,
And this will come back at our February
At
3rd
February
meeting on
3rd.
the Monday?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nora.
Thanks, Norm.
Okay. Next on our agenda is a very important update on the school building project. We want to welcome our Superintendent of Schools, Emily Parks, the Chair of the School Building Committee, Maya Plotkin, and the lead representative for Dorian Whittier, Don Walter. And we understand you're going to do this from memory because you go through it every day of the week. A brief presentation on where the status of the project process is, because it is a very long and detailed process. And I have been representing the board this year on this committee. Michael Walsh did last year, and I think it's an important time for us all to be brought up to date because we don't get much opportunity at these meetings to touch on this, and certainly can't do it as well as you folks do. So I'm happy to welcome you here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks for having us. As you mentioned, I'm just introducing Don Walter, our principal architect for the project, and also with us, there's Chen back there. He's with Compass, our OPM. And Don is just going to give you a brief update on the process. I think at the end we are going to ask for a vote to authorize the town administrator to sign documents for the MSBA on behalf of the town. I don't know if that was in your packet, but
You know what, May, it's not, and I think it's fine to talk about it. We may want to do it next week before our
Okay.
Finance Commission meeting, because we didn't have that.
okay.
As
If
an
it's not
action
there,
item.
that's fine. We at
Yeah,
some
but
point we will
setting
need
the
that.
stage for that would be
Yep.
perfect.
Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Don.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the board. Thrilled to be here. We got hired in the middle of October, and we've been here almost twice a week since. So it's been fast and furious since the beginning. A lot of work has been completed. We want to give you an update on a little bit about the process and where we are and where we're going from tonight. So I'll take you through a little bit about the overview and the process, summary of the work that we've completed to date. We are in the process now of developing design options. So there's a lot of those that we'll be looking at, and then let you know what's going to be happening beyond where we are. So an overview of the schedule. We started, as I mentioned, back in the middle of October, and we took a two-pronged approach to start with through November and December doing facilities assessment, going through the buildings with architects, engineers, consultants, looking at all the existing facilities, as well as starting to develop the educational program and all the planning that goes into that. So what comes out of all that work are all these options that we're starting to look at, which we'll share with you. And then beyond, what we're going to do is we're going to take the many options that we've developed and narrow it down to a short list. So by sometime in March, we'll be submitting that to the MSBA, Mass School Building Authority, who is your partner on this, and submit those options. They'll review those options, they'll provide comments, but we'll take those few options and narrow them down to one. So the goal is by sometime in June, we will collectively know what the preferred option is going to be for the Hanlon Elementary School. And then, assuming all that goes well, we'll move into what's called schematic design, which is to bring that up to more detail, which will lead us into spring of 2021, where we'll be asking for the MSBA board to approve the project and for the community to approve the project. So that's an overview of the schedule. In a little more detail, of course, we're here on the 21st of January. We've been going through the visioning and the community input, and basically it's leading us up to March, which will then bring us to June with a few options. August will be the time when we submit the options, the single option in June. In August is when the board, MSBA board, will approve that singular option to take us through to the next spring. But then beyond, again, assuming favorable votes, we will develop those drawings. So we go through a design development phase, construction document, and bidding phase. And by next spring, after 21 and 22, we would look to commence construction. And within anywhere from 15 to 18 months, see a new school opening by the fall of 2023. So, fast-moving but very comfortable schedule at the same time. Very doable. So in terms of some of the work that we've been doing, I mentioned the site and building assessments. We've been working very closely with a working group, with the school department, with the school building committee. We've conducted interviews with principals. We've taken walkthroughs of all the buildings from an educational point of view, had faculty and staff visioning workshops, principal workshops. We've had a number of public forums already. In fact, there's another one this Thursday night. And we conducted some community visioning. And I think it's important to note that, we didn't come in here with any preconceived notions. We're trying to flush out what meets your needs for the Hanlon Elementary School and the elementary schools in general here in Westwood. So that's why all these meetings have been occurring. In fact, we toured 3 other school buildings in the area, other elementary schools, but just so people could see what's happening in Needham, in Millis, and in Milford. So those were eye-opening tours to everyone that participated. So with the faculty and staff visioning, the very hands-on day spent with the faculty and staff. We had about 70 people participating that day. And this is just an example of some of the drawings that they produce, some of the little models that they produce. What would you like to see happen within your school building? And the diagram in the middle is showing some window seats and some comfy seats, and giving kids an opportunity to not just sit at desks, but to move around the classroom, to work in small groups, to work individually, to sit by a window. And the drawing on the photo on the right shows all of the documents that were developed by the staff. We couldn't even get them all in the photo, there were so many. So we take all this into consideration when we consider the designs that we develop. And then the community visioning, again, we had about 75 people attending. It was held in the Hanlon Gymnasium, and it was, I think, about 6 hours of time spent. We looked at the building from the inside, tried to flesh out what you might like to see in the building from a planning perspective. And in the afternoon, we took it back to the outside and said, well, if you had a building with these parts and pieces, what might it look like on the Hanlon site, on the Sheehan site? And we looked at the 3 different building sizes that I'll talk about here in a minute also. But the image in the upper left was done by one of the table groups, which basically laid out a building in the fields and talked about parking and how something might work on the Hanlon site. So a very engaged group, gave us a lot of great information. People had a lot of great questions. They had a lot of great ideas to share. So that was a super day that we had. So what are those scenarios that we're looking at? This is a Hanlon Elementary School project in the MSBAIs. But they also have said you can look at what happens, and that's a 315 student school. You can look at what happens if you have a 560 student school, which would include Hanlon and Deerfield. What would happen if you have a 685 student school, which would be Hanlon and Sheehan. So what you see up on the screen for the Hanlon only, we would look at a renovation only option. I can tell you right now it doesn't work because there's not enough room in the building for 315 students. So that one easily goes away. We look at additions and renovations and see how we can add space and maybe renovate the existing space to make that work. And we have new options to see how a new 315 student school may work on that Hanlon site. We also look at we're also looking at the 560 student option. Again, addition and renovation, like with the smaller school, and new, only on the Hanlon site. The Deerfield site's not being considered for one of the solutions. So that's underway. And then lastly, Hanlon and Sheehan. The largest, it would be the largest of the 3 schools. Addition and renovation option at the Hanlon site and an addition and renovation option at the Sheehan site. So both of those sites are being taken into consideration, as well as new on either of the sites. So those are the options we're looking at, and I can tell you that it's up to 15 options right now that we've developed.
So on that last slide.
Yes.
So is there no option of, oh, I'm sorry, it is there. So there is an option of a new school at the Sheehan site.
That's correct, Sheehan and Hanlon, yeah. So just a quick overview of the sites that we're looking at. The existing Hanlon Elementary School here, located along Gay Street, with Little League baseball, basketball court, some open fields, some play area. There's about 8.5 acres of Hanlon property, which basically what you see here. We're also taking into consideration the wooded area in the back, which is 37 acres. So all together, we've got about 46 acres of property, which actually goes off the screen. That's taken into consideration when we look at any of the options on the Hanlon site. As opposed to the Sheehan site, which existing school building located here, tennis courts, baseball, an open field looking out towards Buckmaster Pond. What's interesting here is the existing Sheehan site is just over 4 acres, and the adjacent fields are just over 6 acres, so it's only about 10.5 acres. So 10.5 acres versus 46 acres. So you can imagine what you can do on the Hanlon site versus the Sheehan site. So we're looking at that and seeing, how the buildings may work on there. Imagine a 685 student school on this site, and we're not going to get into the options tonight, but it gets quite congested. So those options that we've been looking at, won't look at these in any kind of detail, but you get a sense of, starting from small addition and renovation and working your way up through the 560 student options and the 685 student options, and the effort that goes into that work, and going back and forth with the working group and the subcommittee and the school building committee. It's been a fascinating process so far, and I think we're going to see something really special come out of this when it's all said and done. So next steps, we're working on those options now. We're going to have cost estimates in another week and a half, so we can start evaluating the options with costs, from a cost perspective, from a site perspective, from an educational planning perspective. All that will be taken into consideration. As I mentioned, in March, we'll identify what the shortlist is, and then between March and June, we're hoping to get down to what becomes the preferred option. So that's where we are.
Don, can you just mention on the cost estimates, it's a broad range at any given
Right
item,
now,
right? Because
we
we're not
consider
very
those o-
detailed.
Right, we consider those order of magnitude, so we're looking at square footage costs. We're trying to take the sites into consideration because there's some
Right, different site
nuances to each of
preparation.
the sites. We're taking into consideration some of the sustainability goals of the town. We'll be looking at, when you're looking at addition and renovation versus new, what the impact on learning might be and on the daily school activities, and if you have to phase a project with additions or renovations, as opposed to if it's a new building, you might be able to locate it such that you're not, you're minimally impacting the daily life of students and teachers. So all those will be lumped into those initial costs, but as you said, in a broad sense up front here.
Yeah. Any questions from the board?
So the option of combining all three is off the table, right?
That is off the table.
Okay.
Yes.
John?
The Needham Millis Milford, you said some of it was eye-opening. Do you want to share what some of the eye-opening?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of discussions about how to make a big school feel small, because Westwood's very proud of the small schools that we have, the neighborhood feel. And we realized that if we could do either of the consolidation options, it'll be a bigger school than what the largest school we have now. So one of the things we were really focusing on when we went to these other schools is what is the feel? How do they feel small? Do they feel small? Do they feel big? The Needham one is about 530 students. So it's actually fairly comparable to the Hanlon-Deerfield consolidation. And I think, and that's actually, I should say, a Dore and Whittier project. And that was very successful in making it feel small just by the design, the way that classrooms are clustered. You think about the length of the hallway, how far do kids have to walk to get from one thing to another. So that was very eye-opening. We also saw a school, I think it was the Milford School, which had 1,000 students. And again, looking to see how did they make that feel small. And I would say, given the size of the school, they were fairly successful. It was a little bit of a different model, but and what we did in these tours is we would talk to teachers, we would talk to students, and we'd say, what don't you like about the design? Just to try and figure out where we can tweak ours to avoid the pitfalls that they experienced. So I felt they were very eye-opening, and just to see the kids in the environment. We talk about extended learning, and a lot of people don't know what that means, and just to see kids in these extended learning spaces using them, I just thought it was
And
really
what does it mean, since you touched on that? What is it?
Well, you know what, I'm going to let Emily,
Don't leave
the
us hanging.
educator.
I kind of know, but go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about how we deliver teaching and learning in Westwood, and I would say the key word is flexibly, right? That we want to be able to meet all the kids' needs, and what that means is everyone isn't always doing the same thing at the same time. We're working in small groups. A group of kids might be working with a specialist on something. Another group might be collaborating on a project. And so what we see in these extended learning spaces are opportunities for breakout, for learning to kind of spill out of the classroom into a big space where you could be working on a project, for example. So what we're looking at is sort of picture neighborhoods of classrooms, if you will, like a grade level cluster that is positioned around a bigger area where small groups can work, or where two classes could come together, almost like a learning commons. And so for me, going on the tours, it sort of broadened our horizons to see how the design of the space could really support the kind of teaching and learning that we know we're doing here in Westwood already, but with some obstacles, because our buildings weren't designed for that kind of education.
And also, I think it in part also goes to the outdoors.
Yeah, so that's another thing we really saw in all of the schools that we toured, the way that they're using outdoor learning areas, outdoor classrooms. We're really interested in that, and that's right in line with some of the goals that we have in terms of kids' wellness and social emotional learning. We really want kids to be connected to the outdoors, to have opportunities for play and also learning through exploration and play. So that was really neat to see also.
Yeah.
So Needham was 530, Milford was 1,000. I have to know what Millis was.
I think it's somewhere between.
Somewhere in the middle. It was somewhere in the middle, yeah.
Was the 1,000 student school 2 stories?
Three stories.
It was 3 stories,
big.
but it was only grades 3 through 5.
What was it?
It's only grades 3 through 5 in
They had
Milford. Yeah,
15 sections, I think,
Yeah.
per grade
Yeah,
level.
so it was 3 stories, and I mean, you drove up to that, and it looked like an apartment complex. Like it was large, but and so approaching it, you're thinking, my God, what's it look like on the inside? But I will say, on the inside, they really did. They were able to sort of capture that community feel. It was impressive.
It was a nice culture, but I should emphasize that is bigger than anything we're
Yes,
considering.
we are not considering the 1,000 kids.
Right.
It's nice to know it can still accomplish some of the same
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah.
So,
So from Thursday night's meeting, if you get the sense, because you're presenting a lot of options, it's my youngest son's birthday, so I can't be there.
Oh.
Sorry. If you get the sense that they're just a no-go, would you forego costing them?
No. In fact, part of the process is that even if things start falling off early, you still need to take them through
Process.
all the steps with the MSBA, so you have a complete look at everything that happens. Yep.
Which I actually think is helpful, because, when we get to town meeting, there may be someone who says, well, why didn't you fully explore this or fully explore that? And we'll be able to say we did, and here's why it didn't make it as the final selection. So I do think this MSBA process of sort of forcing us to look at each option, even if at first glance we're like, this will never work, forcing us to kind of go through and really evaluate it is really beneficial to the process.
so do you want to promote again the meeting Thursday night?
Yes.
Thursday night at 7 p.m. in the Thurston Middle School cafeteria. So Doran Whittier will be presenting the 15 options that they have designed for us. And I will say that I have been very pleased with the level of community engagement and the input that we've gotten from residents and parents. It's been really important to the design process. I think that if people have been participating in that process, they will see some of those ideas realized in these designs. That's been very exciting for us as the educators to see what we've been talking about kind of start to come to life. And I think it's really important that we continue to get people's input at this stage. It's going to be a busy couple of months.
So you have the need for us to do what you said earlier, Maya, to have signing of documents.
Yep, so we're going to be submitting what's called the PDP, which is the first report where we go with our with the options, the big list of options, and also attaching the education plan. And the MSBA just requires someone from the SBC to sign, someone from the town of Westwood as, I guess, CEO to sign, and I think school committee might have to sign as well. But so we're just asking at some point before March, I think that's when we're submitting it, if you can appoint, I guess, Chris or whoever you appoint, someone just to sign on behalf of the town.
And I believe, I learned last week, there's another action that we'll probably do then, and that is to have designated CEO sign to quantify all the meetings that have taken place. I think that's another MSBA submission.
I'm looking at Chin.
Yeah, that's something
He's our process
was
guy.
talking about.
What we need to do is simply submit the meeting minutes, and the only one that requires a certified copy will be, so you don't need to take any actions, it's just that we will have to, for the vote, we need a certified copy of the meeting minute recording the actual vote.
Check with Tim, though. I think he did mention to me that there was a listing of all the meetings held that would need a sign-off as well. Just check. That's what I recall him saying. And the other thing I understand we're going to need to do, not immediately, but need to do, is formulate a committee that will review the what-ifs. What if a school is consolidated into another school? What would happen to that building and property?
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, we should have that in place by June. So I've just talked to Chris a little bit about maybe doing that in April so we get it taken care of, ready to go. But it would be a working group to look at options, not to have the answer.
Right.
Because we couldn't possibly have the answer in June because you won't know the answer for the school, but we can look at what needs to be considered and what may or
Yep.
may not happen. We can
Yeah, and I think as part
review
of
that.
our submission in June, the MSBA requires us to say what will happen to the remaining schools. So if there's a Hanlon-Deerfield consolidation at Hanlon, what's going to happen to Deerfield?
Right.
And that's exactly what we need to, we can simply say, you know, the school does not believe it will be using the school, it will turn it to the town, and the town has formed a subcommittee to evaluate the future of that building. Right? I think
So that's to come.
That's to come.
I like that option.
Okay. Well, we did many years ago, before the high school was built, or as it was being built, the Colburn building was turned over to the town
Yeah.
because that was vacated by central administration upon moving into the administration wing of the new high school project. So it does happen.
Yes.
Be nice to talk about it sooner than we did that time, so I think that's a good thing. Anything else you need to touch on tonight?
Nope,
All right.
just to iterate Emily's point, we'd love to get as many community members as we can.
Sure.
I think we've had some great response, but the more the merrier is our motto.
So it's an important night, Thursday, 7 p.m.
Yes, and we're only
at the
doing
middle
one
school.
session. We're not going to do
On this
two.
one, only one.
Yeah, it will be videotaped by Westwood Media Center, so if you can't make it, John, you can certainly watch it.
And
Go
there,
watch it Friday night.
there is a way to submit questions on the website.
Yes.
Yes.
And you post FAQs, which frequently ask questions and answers.
Yes.
So if people go to our district website, there's a button right on the homepage that will take you to the elementary building project website. And we post the links to all the videos of all the meetings that we do. There's an extensive FAQ, and you can submit a question. We will respond. And if enough people ask a question, we then roll it
Post
into
it.
the FAQ as well.
Perfect. All right, well, thank you for coming in. I know we'll see you again.
On Thursday. We'll see you Thursday.
Great.
I've heard the 15 options. So somebody else's turn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in. Okay. Todd Corchin, Brendan Ryan, if you can join us at the table. Our next agenda item is a discussion of the Route 109 lane configuration. And we have Ken Ho with us from Beta Group, and we're here. And what's your title now?
Sergeant's fine.
Sergeant Detective Paul Sicard?
Correct.
Okay, so we've got quite the A-team here. Thank you for joining us. We're here to hear from you about what next now that we've gone through a few months of a temporary lane widening on Summer Street heading east to 2 lanes between Summer and the highway and the restriping that took place. So I'm just going to leave it there and turn it over to whomever would like to speak next.
And just very briefly, it was pretty much a year ago that we had met here before the board. There were some concerns with the abutting neighbors, abutting neighborhoods with respect to traffic, and we all were in agreement that obviously a bulk of the cut-through traffic is a direct result of the congestion along Route 109, primarily heading eastbound in the morning commute. It was at that point in time the select board asked us, what can we do, what are our options? We went back, took a good hard look at the existing footprint on 109 at that point in time. Beta Group did a great job in examining what we had for limits within the town's right-of-way, and essentially coming up with a plan that incorporated 2 lanes heading eastbound, approximately from Summer Street all the way up to Louderbrook Drive. We came back before the select board at that point, and the select board advised us to move forward with the temporary setup. We did incorporate the second additional lane roughly around late spring, early summer of 2019. Following that point, we took some data. It was right before school was out of session, and quite frankly, came out of the gate pretty quick in obtaining that data. We would have been better suited to waiting a little bit, letting habits form. So that said, over the summer months, we stood still at that point, and came back with a plan for September to come in and take some more data once everyone was back and school was back in session. That said, Ken did a great job in doing so. We have all those results and some interesting points. Over the summer months, I will say that there were some abutters that came forward with some concerns. We had met with them and gave them the update as to where we stood as far as waiting until September to obtain some more data and then compare the results versus what we initially obtained back in late spring, early summer, versus essentially what was previous with just the one-lane configuration. So that said, I'll turn it over to Ken and let him give you a brief presentation on what we have.
Great. Thank you, Todd. Madam Chair, so what I'd like to do tonight is to walk you through very quickly in terms of the existing conditions and, the lane restriping, what exactly lane width that we have, striped, and compare that with, before it was striped. And I'll spend a minute on the data that we have collected and regarding speed and traffic volume, and conclude the presentation.
Okay, there's no rush. We want to hear the details here, so
Sure.
you have the time you need.
Okay, so what you have in front of you is essentially the project limit. If you're looking at the screen in front of me on towards the left, just so everyone is oriented, this is the intersection of Summer Street intersection, and then all the way going eastbound, and that's Lauderbrook intersection. So the section of the roadway where we did the lane reconfiguration is approximately 1,300 feet as shown on the map here. What I'd like to do is walk you through a little close-up as to the lane changes that we have made. Again, this is working our way from Summer Street all the way to Lauderbrook. This is the first section that you see in front of you. If you notice, from the intersection at Summer, going eastbound somewhere around here, currently, or before we made any lane restriping, that section is always 2 lanes. And that's approximately 300 feet, plus or minus. And the 2 lane tapers into 1 lane. And what you have is, before we stripe it, is that section of the roadway from curb to curb, the width is 35 feet. And so what you have is 1 12-foot travel lane eastbound and 1 12-foot travel lane on the westbound. So you've got 2 lane, and then you have a shoulder that is approximately 5 feet, plus or minus, depending on the areas. So that actual width, it's about 35 feet. So that's what you have before we made any striping. So what we have done is, the first section, as you've shown here, is the 35 feet, we have restriped it to essentially create a 3 11-foot lane. So it's 2 going eastbound and 1 going westbound with a 1-foot shoulder on each side. So that's essentially what we have done. And this is the middle section of the area where we have restriped. Again, it's 3 11-foot lane and 1-foot shoulder. As you approach Lauderbrook, and this is where we taper or merge back into the 2 lane at the intersection, and approximately at the goal area that's shown right here. So that was the restriping that we did
What's that
in
distance?
early spring.
What's that distance between the 2 that existed and the 2 out there? What's the
So,
The lane- the
so the
distance that
net section where we have restriped, which is essentially approximately 1,000 feet, plus or minus.
Thank
Some before and after.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So it's 1,300 feet. It was like a bow tie. When you went over Summer Street, it was 212.
Yes.
So, and you're saying, so that middle piece that went down to 1 was 1,000 feet?
Right. So if go back to the first, this
The whole thing is
slide, right?
1,300.
Yeah. So from the intersection approximately here
Yeah.
to over here,
It's
which is
1,300.
is 1,300 feet. So this little section right here has always been
Been
two lanes.
Yeah.
So it which is approximately 300 feet.
Okay.
So the section that we have restriped.
But then at the other end, it returned to 2.
So it returns to 2 right here.
Oh, it was right there. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me.
No, excuse me. We're going to let public comment come after they finish their presentation, but I will give you a chance, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So here are just some before and after shot of what we have done. So now working our way from Louderbrook intersection, here is that gold area right here, and this is the existing striping, and you can see that the existing is being blacked out, and here is the proposed striping, and that's where essentially where we merge the 2 lane. Continue on towards Summer Street. This is approximately 700 feet from Louderbrook. Again, you can look at the compare the before and after. So the before, you see this basically 1 travel lane on each side, and then the shoulder which is about 5 foot plus or minus on both directions. And if you look at the after, and this is where we have, the 2 11-foot eastbound, 1 foot shoulder, and then again on the other side, 11-foot lane and 1 foot shoulder. And you can see where we blacken out the existing double yellow center line, the restriping, where we shift essentially the double yellow center line towards north of the streets. A few more before and after, and this is approximately 800 feet from Summer Street. Again, same, with you can see that the 1 lane each direction, and then the 5 foot shoulder plus or minus, and the after is you got the 2 lane eastbound and the 1 lane westbound and the 1 foot shoulder. Again, this is a different view. If you look, this is essentially looking from Summer Street in this case. So approximately 500 feet. The before and after, you have the 1 lane eastbound, and then the 1 lane westbound, and here you have the 2 lane and the 1 lane and the 1 foot shoulder. So what we have done is we have collected 4 different periods of traffic data. October 2018 is when we first collected traffic data. We have compared speed and traffic volume. So here, table 1 shows the speed comparison. So we did it in October, and we did it in May. This is after we did the restriping. And in August, the Westwood Police Department also did their own independent speed collection. This is, in this case, the focus was on the westbound. And in September, we also collected additional data for comparison. So if you look at the speed, we have made a comparison of 50 percentile speed, which is the average, and then the 85th percentile speed. So what that is the 85th percentile is, vehicle at below which, 85% are traveling at that speed. And the 85th percentile speed is typically used by industry standard to measure speed. So before any striping, if you look at the westbound, you have the average speed is 29, the 85th percentile speed is 37, And then the eastbound is 33 miles per hour for the average and 38 miles, which is the 85th percentile. So the first set of data that we have collected in May, it shows that, you know, the westbound is 31, and then the eastbound is 37 miles per hour, and then the 85th percentile is 42, and before it was 38. In August, the police department collected, and in their independent speed, the westbound is 32 miles per hour, compared that to 29 before. The 85th percentile speed is 38 miles compared to 37 miles, which is before we did the striping. And the last set of data, which is in September, we collected, the westbound is 30 for the average, and the eastbound is 39, and the 85th percentile is 37 and 44 miles per hour. So you're looking at, you know, the range, you know, which there's an increase of somewhere between 2 to 6 miles per hour for the speed data that we have collected. In Table 2, I quickly just wanted to point out.
Go back to.
Before you get there,
Yes.
I just want to be clear. So the speeds that you're measuring, is this only during that 1,300-foot span, or is this the entire 109?
So it's essentially within that 1,300 feet.
Okay. All right, that's all I want to know.
Yeah. So Table 2, I'm just going to very quickly, I'm not going to get into the detail of this one because the next volume table is the one that I really wanted to spend a little more time. So I just wanted to mention that on a given average weekday, the traffic volume on 109 within the section of you know, the 1,300 feet, it's you know, a little over 25,000 cars, and this is we counted in October, and it did show a little reduction of volumes in May and September, and I think this is due to, you know, the variation of the month. But overall, they are, you know, way up there in the 25,000 vehicle. This is the table that I wanted to spend a little more time on, is the turning movement count. So what this is we manually count every single traffic movement at the intersection of Summer Street and High Street. So what we have done is we have highlighted the eastbound movement. It's the eastbound T, meaning eastbound through movement, and then the eastbound L, meaning that's the eastbound left. So if you look at High Street, eastbound through movement, and that was the movement that we, you know, wanted to measure, you know, what the volume is. So before we did the 2-lane, you know, restriping, the volume during the peak hour, in this case, is 435. Okay, and then this is in the morning. In May, this is right after when we did the 2-lane restriping, the volume went out to 1,270. And then again in September, we measured the volume again, and that went up to, you know, that's also around, you know, 1,285. So the increase in the throughput for the eastbound, it's about 180, you know, for you know, this you know, period right here. And so I think it's important to note that, you know, the whole idea with the restriping is, you know, is there anything that we could do to improve the throughput volume because of the long queue that, you know, we see every day. So the restriping indicates that, you know, that traffic volume, you know, we are allowing about 200 cars, you know, more cars going through the intersection.
And they're going faster.
And in this case, they are going, faster between 2 to 6 miles, per hour. So I think, so the throughput is something that we expected that it would go high because that's what we wanted, that's what we expected. Is it enough to, solve the problem? That wasn't the whole intent. We knew it wasn't going to solve the whole queuing problem, but it is helping. It is, we are pushing, about 200 car more going through the intersection. So I think in a nutshell, from speed and the volume, so that's essentially where we are. And I think that's
So
all the
I know you folks want to make comments, and I want you to. We're going to start by us asking some more questions, and then I will give you all a chance. So I should have said that at the very beginning. I'm sorry I didn't. So I'll ask if my colleagues on the board have any more questions they want to ask at this point.
I don't think so. I mean, I fully understand it. I know more about traffic than I care to.
You did a good job, Ken. Thank you for that.
The 200 more cars was in an hour, or what
That's
was
1 hour.
That's 1 hour.
Yes.
Okay.
So what does that translate into?
Yeah, so the 6 to 9 a.m.
So
we're talking 600 cars. Is it safe to extrapolate that number out?
We typically we look at is the 1 peak hour, but we do have the 2 peak hour. Basically, it's between 7 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
So we so technically between 7 and 9, it's more than 200 cars that's going through.
Okay.
Okay.
I got it. Okay.
Any other comments you want to make before I give the public a chance to comment, Todd?
I think it's just a point I made prior to us incorporating this feature on 109, that what is out there today is by no means our choice. It was really what we were able to do within our means. If this was to become a permanent feature, we would use a pavement measure out there to essentially start with a clean blackboard. We would incorporate recessed reflectivity for embedded into the lane configuration, better striping, better signage. So I don't want anyone to get a false impression that that's the type of product we put forward by any means. It wasn't our choice to do it that way. We were kind of in a position that was the only way we could do it.
Okay.
Still all to standard, just aesthetically doesn't look the best, and by no means is as clear as it would be or will be or could have been. So.
I'm going to ask Paul some questions of you. Curious why the police department did the westbound study in August?
That was just incorporated with the small speed sign that we put up. It records the speeds as well. So a resident had asked for the sign to go up, so the sign went up. So when Ken asked if we had any data, I happened to have it. I didn't specifically go out looking for it.
But it was for westbound, not eastbound?
Correct.
Okay.
The residents on that side had asked for the speed sign, so that's where we'd put it up. And it only collects one direction on the speed sign as opposed to the regular traffic collection.
And do you have any information on policing of these higher speeds that has occurred since the lane configuration went in?
It sounds higher, but it's not. I mean, it is higher, obviously. The numbers are there.
There's 15% that's going faster than this.
Right, and typically whenever you have a relief in traffic at all, and when congestion is reduced, you're going to have an increase in speed. That kind of goes hand in hand. There hasn't been any more ticketing up there. We've done more radar up there, but we haven't run across more, violations that the officers are pulling over. I looked at the numbers, and the numbers are consistent with what were there before. There's more radar being run, but not more ticketing.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so this is how we're going to do it. This microphone you can take off the stand and sit and speak from if that's easier, more comfortable. If you can address your questions to us, I'll just sort of control the flow, but our panel of people, maybe, thanks, Paul, maybe you can help. I'll ask people to respond. Yeah, feel free to sit down if you'd like to. So that won't amplify it in the room. What that does is pick it up for the Westwood Media Center. So we can obviously hear you, so just go ahead. Yeah, have a seat if you'd like. And if you could just identify your name and address, it helps for the records, but whatever you're comfortable with, sir.
Hello, my name is Leo Supple.
Please hold that up.
And I reside at 222 High Street on 109 and I am within this 1,300-foot area that has been discussed. My problem with the situation is that because of the increased speed, my driveway abuts 109, and for me to come out of my driveway and take a left
To head into
towards
town?
Summer Street,
Yep.
I have to cross 1, 2, 3 lanes now instead of 2. The cars, it's a little complicated, a little more complicated than I think what the graphics show, because there is an incline within this 300-foot space. And as I come out of my driveway, I am turning to my left to assess the oncoming traffic from my left. And the incline that is there is subtle, very subtle, but it hides the cars from my viewpoint enough. It drops them down. And it hides them enough so by the time I turn to assess the oncoming traffic from the right and turn my head back to the left, sometimes the cars are at my door. They're going so fast. There have been 2 crashes coming out of the driveway. We now have a house rule, no left turn out of the driveway. You must turn to the right. I know this is a personal inconvenience to me, and I can live with that. I'm fine with that. But I'd like to stay alive, and I find this situation totally life-threatening. The other factor that I am nervous about, and I feel that my life is endangered, is taking the mail out of my mailbox. And we had mentioned an area of 1 foot. So these cars that are going fast and speeding are 1 foot away from my hand when I am getting the mail from the mailbox, which is daily, about noontime. I feel like I'm standing on 128 with cars whizzing back and forth. It's very uncomfortable, and I think it's a disaster ready to happen. It is not a good situation for me. There are 3 people, elderly people, that reside at 222, myself included. I am 80 years old, and the next senior is 87, and the third is 92. I do a lot of the chore-like tasks around the house. Obtaining the mail is one of them, so I'm right out there. And the other 2 people are not well as far as their health situation is concerned. They can't do things like that, nor would I ever want to ask them or think of asking them to do that. It's very, very, very unsafe. Now, there have been 2 accidents coming out of the driveway before we set the rule of only taking a right turn out of the driveway. And both times we were sideswiped from traffic, oncoming traffic, going eastbound from the west.
Can I ask you what times of day those accidents occurred, if you
There were
can?
different times, I would say, but they were in the daylight hours. It was not at night.
Morning peak, when the commuter traffic is, or any after
No,
that?
it was between that.
Okay.
No, it was not during a rush hour situation.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's hazardous, it's very hazardous. And people fly. They absolutely fly over that hill. And by the time they get to my driveway and my car, if I'm out there, I'm in trouble, in big, big, deep trouble.
Okay.
I wish they would slow down more. I think that the element of safety was not reflected in the presentation as good as it was, and I think as positive as it was for remedying your situation of getting more cars to go through that area. I think that works. But if you're going to sacrifice lives, it's not going to work.
Thank you.
My name is Ron Cherry. My wife and I live at 165 High Street. That's
on the other
right
side.
across from the town pound. We moved into the town over 40 years ago, and I was the keeper of the pound for many, many years. I used to walk my equipment across the street when it used to be an old country road before we even had sidewalks, and it was safe to go across, which it isn't anymore because of the high rate of speed. However, some of the things that I went to the meeting in August and expressed my concerns. First of all, the 1 foot shoulder is not 1 foot all the way. And I've measured it. It's 6 inches in parts. And there's no bike lane. And if you're walking on the sidewalk there, imagine trucks going at a high rate of speed of 40, 50 miles an hour, 6 inches from you. It's crazy. And you got dump trucks, cement trucks, all sorts of things. If I went out in 128 and walked 6 inches from traffic going that rate of speed, the state police would pick me up and bring me right to McLean Hospital, since then on the road. Just a week ago, we're sitting in the house, 6 at night, hear this tremendous crash. A lady goes up and over the curb into the telephone pole, totals her car, pushes the telephone pole against the guardrail, and then it comes back towards the street. Totaled her car. The telephone pole is cracked and split. It's still out there, cracked and split. I went and I looked the other day. It's resting against the sidewalk. That's what holds it up so it doesn't fall on 109. I looked behind it and I saw a gap like this, 4 feet down. I says, holy mackerel, what happened was when she hit it, she pushed it against the guardrail, and then it came back this way. So in the ground, it's like this, okay? I think someone should check that out. But if somebody was walking there, they'd be killed. She doesn't even know how she got in that position, up over the curb and hitting. Thank God there was no cars coming either way, else it would have been a head-on crash at that point. I have had people fly into my driveway at 20 or 30 miles an hour to turn around. If you go out there, I'm very careful, even walking to get the mail, because people fly in my driveway to turn around because the traffic is so bad. My mailman is afraid to deliver the mail to our house. It's really, really dangerous.
Now, you're getting the westbound traffic coming off the ramp or coming from
Right,
Dedham.
and they're coming from 2 lanes into 1. It's complete road rage.
Out of curiosity, has it changed from before? Because I know you're saying it shifted, the breakdown lane portion has changed, but what do you notice as the difference
Well, the
now
biggest
from
thing
before?
is, at least before, we had a shoulder.
Okay,
That
so,
was somewhat safe.
yeah. But people
I would-
turning around has happened,
Yeah.
Been
because
an
of the
ongoing
traffic,
thing.
That's been ongoing.
right.
But I'm afraid to walk the sidewalk. I wouldn't take my grandchildren out there. If I had kids, my kids are all grown up now. They're not on the sidewalk walking to school anymore, but I don't know how many years I'm going to be there, but I'm sure maybe at some point a family will come in there with kids.
Okay.
And they'd want it safe for those kids to walk on the sidewalk there.
Okay,
So these are my concerns.
thank you.
I really don't have that much more to add than what he had said, but I have to say myself, I reached out to Leo just a couple of weeks ago and did not realize what
he and his household had experienced, because what all of us on the westbound side was fearing is what he experienced, you know, because we know that it's just a matter of time. You know, people coming, you know, off the westbound, going the westbound side, they jockey to get into that one lane that's going westbound, which is right in front of our house that it happens,
Yep.
you know. And, you know, I have my grandchildren in my back seat, and coming eastbound, you know, I'm afraid that I'm going to get whacked in the back. I'm always looking in the rearview mirror, hoping that they see me, you know, that I don't get hit, because I usually have two little ones back there, you know. Nobody slows down. I don't understand this graph and all of that business, you know. I don't understand 6 miles over the speed limit or 8 miles over, because that's certainly not. I'm a big person, but when I'm out there, you know, getting the mail or something, I get whacked, you know, by the air. You know, our trash bins have been knocked off the sidewalk, you know, that we've had to go out, not only pick them up, but get all the crap and put it back in, you know. I just don't understand. And listening to Leo's situation, my insides shook, because I felt they really don't care about us, you know. There's so few people that live on that stretch that they really don't care about us, and that's how I feel, you know. And I used to enjoy, I mean, before we had a sidewalk, you were cut off from the town, but the sidewalk connected us. Now I'm afraid. I mean, I'm afraid to take a carriage down there, you know, because if I'm going towards town, the traffic is to my back. I can't see, you know. And that accident that happened, it was, the weather was beautiful. It was that Saturday night. It was 7 o'clock, you know, because I was out there. I was the first one to go to the woman, you know. She was totally dumbfounded. She just said, how did that happen? I feel what happened. If you want to put up, can you put up that, the street?
Sure.
Summer Street picture?
This one?
Nope,
No,
go back
no,
up.
go back.
No, forward,
No.
sorry.
One more.
Like in front of my house.
Just the fence,
looking,
keep going.
looking
Oh, okay.
west.
One more.
One more. Is the actual pictures of the before and after pictures?
Yes, the before and after
Oh,
on Louder
right
Brook.
there.
Right there.
Right there.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. I'll point it out over here. This was the pole that was hit. But if you look
Right by the 109 sign?
Yes, just before it.
Yep.
And if you look right here, because I experienced it, especially at night, and it was nighttime when this happened, that the traffic, the 2 lanes coming to you, it almost looks that person is going to come right head on to you, because I always slow down. And there's a little bit of a curve before the headlights are not hitting you. And whether it's a narrow spot or whatever it is. And I don't know if that's what happened to that woman, because I was inside the house and I heard a bump and I thought, oh God, and a scrape. And then I heard a crash. And I went right out there. She got out of the car and she just said, how did that happen? You know? And I don't know what protocol is or whatever, but somebody came. I don't know if it was her husband or whatever. There was a young child in the truck with him, and the mother went over. I assumed it was her child. Went over and they hugged each other. And then later on, she went off with this, I'll call him her husband, you know? So I don't know if it was distracted or if it was, you know, any alcohol or any drugs.
Okay,
or
we don't
I
need to get
know
into that.
anything about
You
that,
c- yes,
okay?
yeah.
But
We'll leave that
she
to the
left.
police.
She left from there.
Yep.
Okay? So I'm assuming, you know, that, and it was a beautiful night. It was 70 degrees, you
Yep.
know, because I watched Mike Walkham on the news that night, and he goes, it's so beautiful out. Everybody go out and take a walk. Go out. It's just, you know, and I thought about that, and I thought, geez, you know, but I'm
But it
like,
still
good
happens.
thing I didn't, you know? And, but,
Okay.
you know.
Thank you.
That's it. That's what I
Thank you.
have to say.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Maura Sewell, and I live at 233 High Street.
Yep.
And first and foremost, 44 miles an hour is 50% over the posted speed limit. So that in and of itself should not be permitted. And further, most cars are going more than 44 miles per hour when they come from there. For me to make either a right or a left out of my driveway, I no longer have the benefit of the shoulder because it is also not 12 inches there. It is barely, it's right along the curb. So I actually have to pull into a lane of traffic to go either right or left because the sight line, because of the hill and the pole placement and whatever, makes it very, very difficult. So if I want to go into Westwood, if I want to head west into Westwood, I do have to pull into my lane of traffic and make a fairly hard right angle turn because 11 feet, of which I am already several feet into, is not good math. The bigger problem for me is if I want to go eastbound. Because of the slope of the hill, I can't see down to the light. I can't see past the cars and the trucks as they're piling up there. And I have to take it on faith that I might be able to get out. But I also have to pull into the first line of traffic and hope, if I get a little bit of vision, that I can nail it. And I hit about 48 miles per hour and have to take another hard right-hand angle to get into the fast lane over there. Someone's gonna die here. There is no doubt in my mind. And the town will be liable. And as a retired attorney, I'm kind of sorry that I couldn't take that case because you know it's a problem and it should not be allowed to happen. I agree with everyone else's assessment here. I no longer walk downtown with my dog because we cannot be walking into town feeling the breeze going by. I don't know, I can't get my mail. And the most interesting thing is if you look at my driveway, it's actually the circular driveway. I now have random cars coming up one side of my driveway and down the other side because they think they can get ahead of 3 cars stopped at the light. I know this because we have cameras and I see the cameras go off and it'd be like, what's that? And it's just a car just buzzing through because they're thinking that they can get ahead of 3 or 4 cars if they come out the other side of my driveway. That also should not happen. I mean, this is just a crazy, insane situation. There are no longer any cyclists going by either. There used to be a lot of bicycles that would go by in both directions, and since this has happened, I haven't seen a single person riding their bike. I've had workmen come to the house that joke that they have, if they're coming from Westwood, they have to go to Lauterbrook and turn around and then try and come in because they think it's safer. They don't want to be rear-ended. When I'm coming from Westwood Center trying to get into my driveway, this is really an exciting, and I will not do it during rush hour. I have to keep one eye peeled for behind me to make sure that somebody doesn't think, oh, I get a freebie here. I can just nail it and get up this road and not necessarily see me trying to put on my blinker to cross over. And I sit there a very long time because the traffic heading into Westwood, no one will give me a break. And I don't blame them because they know they're going to get rear-ended if they do. Since this lane change has happened, I've seen at least 3 accidents that have occurred in front of my house. Each and every time it has taken 2 police cruisers, a fire truck, an ambulance, a tow truck, and an hour. That's a lot of town resources being wasted as they do their accident reconstruction, pick people up and get them to their ambulances and what have you. And those are just the ones that I've seen. Yeah. So I would ask that we go back. I don't think that getting a couple more cars out in an hour, and during peak traffic is worth the risk you're putting not only to all of us who live there, but anyone who's going to get hit in that there. Honestly, when I'm coming back and trying to get into my driveway, I really feel like I'm in the middle of a pinball game because I can hear everybody, cars come up, they suddenly realize that you're stopped and they have to divert and hope they don't hit somebody else. And there's a lot of swearing. a lot of swearing.
Hear that, huh?
Audible and inaudible, and the road rage is insane. And we can, in our yard, you just hear the rev of the car as it's coming, thinking, I am headed out of town. I am headed right out of town, and I'm just going to nail it. You can hear that. And I'm also concerned because across the street, I understand that Fox Hill is looking to partner with ARC and put in developmentally disabled group housing or something like that. And I'm thinking, on that corner, with that hill, with that speedway, write a check, please. Start saving. You're going to need the money.
Okay. I want to thank you all for your comments. Please.
Just one more thing. I babysit my grandchildren 2, sometimes 3 mornings a week. My daughter-in-law is a school teacher. They live on Lakeshore Drive. I leave my house between 10 of 7 and 5 of 7 to go down there. Now, between Summer Street and my house, there's really nobody going west. Okay, they are stopped at the light. There might be a few cars, but that's it at that time. When I get past through the Summer Street, that's where all the traffic is. It's the traffic lights that are holding up the people. And I understand because the side street neighborhoods complain because they can't get out on 109, okay? But, you know, I'm sorry about that. I mean, it's like traffic, it's not just Westwood, it's not a problem for just Westwood. It's every place, you know? You live where you want to live, and you work where you want to work. You go to doctors where you want to go to doctors, and you have to leave appropriate time, you know, and that's it. But I don't feel that it has done anything to alleviate traffic coming through Westwood Center, because I see it at that time, 2 to 3 mornings a week.
Okay.
Anybody else want to say anything?
Okay, you guys have done a good job. Yeah, you can get that back in. Paul, I need your help.
You want it?
No, you got it.
Yeah, thank you all. Okay, the man from the back room comes out. Thank you. Very impactful. I appreciate it. Any questions from the board to any of our community citizens who have spoken or anything?
Well, I would always say, you know, I'm sorry that you, number one, experienced the road rage. I drive this route 5 days a week. And I will tell you, I've never experienced road rage. I've never witnessed road rage. And I drive at various times of the rush hour every day. And I'm not going to debate it, sir. I'm sorry. I was asked if I could try to comment. I find westbound the merge every night is very polite, and everybody does every other car. So if someone said they had video, I'd be curious to see that. I've never experienced it in 50.
Well, it's tooting of horns.
Okay, I'm not going to debate with you, man. I'm just, you offered your perspective, I'm offering mine.
Yeah.
I think, you know, what you say is impactful, but the root of the issue is driver behavior, is speed. And so I guess the question to the 4 of you is, what is it that we can do to remediate the speed? When you go over 128 and enter Dedham, you do hit the various signs that, you know, flash if you're going, and I do notice it does drive behavior because you see the brake lights automatically tap, right? So is there programmatic things we can do to alleviate some of the speed?
I think I think you're referring to the electronics feedback speed limit sign, and that's a very conventional applications that we have implemented, and they are very effective. Those speed signs, you know, they're getting more and more sophisticated. You can set it to, you know, whatever the speed is so that it will flash, or, you know, there'll be a message that comes up and say, you know, slow down. And so they are very effective in terms of trying to reduce vehicle speed.
Do we know what the town right-of-way is on 109, Todd?
That specific location.
Ken, do you have any idea?
Yeah,
the road's 35, but what's the right-of-way?
It's 30.
Yeah,
the
we
35
do
feet?
have.
Yeah, no, the road itself.
Yeah, we do have some GIS, you know, mapping that shows the right-of-way, so it is wider than 35.
So we can widen it.
Yes, but potentially there's room for some widening, but then, you know.
Because I know DOT is putting up grants. The DOT is coming out with grants to widen these areas. I do know that one specifically, and I'm sure you'll hear it on Friday. at the MMA that they are coming up with grants for this on the congestion areas, and this is clearly a congestion area that we're trying to fix, but we might be able to get a grant to be able to widen it to eliminate all of the worries. Go back to a 5-foot shoulder on both sides
But it
and
involves
still keep the
taking.
traffic.
Involves taking a property.
No, I don't think it is. I think the right of way is enough.
Okay.
Certain area that might be potential.
Yeah, small
right-of-way
areas,
impact.
yeah.
Certain areas,
Right.
not the entire corridor.
So can we take a look at that?
Yeah, definitely could.
Because that might eliminate everyone's issue. Back to a 5-foot shoulder and keep it the way it is. Can we also put up blind driveway signs, Todd? A couple of blind driveways?
We can install some signage.
Couple of mirrors, like we have on
The mirrors, Paul, there was a reason that we stayed
Couldn't do
away
the
from
mirrors?
mirrors.
The town hasn't traditionally put mirrors up. Residents have done it.
Okay.
But the town's
Because
shied
I
away from it.
I know there's a couple on Gay Street.
Right.
But those are
they've done
residents?
those.
Yeah, those are all residents. Could I make a couple comments on,
Please,
just
Paul.
to clarify a couple things? On the speed limit, just so everybody's clear, the speed limit's actually 40 from 128 down to a little bit further than the 109 sign, where you see the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign when you're coming in. That's where it actually drops to 30. So it's actually 40 for a good portion of that stretch of roadway.
After the houses.
So coming from where we are here, you can see where the Route 109 sign is.
Right.
Yeah.
It's actually the 30-mile-an-hour, I think
Not
might be
all
the
of it.
last telephone pole that's visible. I can't, my eyes aren't that great from
But
here.
coming eastbound, it would be,
Going westbound,
okay.
going westbound.
Yeah, but coming eastbound, people pick up as soon as they
Right.
get through the intersection.
Right, and it goes up to 40 shortly after the Summer Street. And the other thing is on the accidents. We've actually seen a decrease in accidents, believe it or not, since this went in. During the same time frame from, went in April 28th, 2019. So from then until now, we've had 4 crashes at that site, of which 2 were rear-enders, which is typical in the stop-and-go traffic. One was a side swipe right where we're looking at the after picture here, where a box truck and another car, the lug nuts on the box truck side swiped the car as the car tried to beat him ahead. And the other one was the last accident we heard where the girl went off the road and hit the telephone pole.
This gentleman said 2.
Those were
sides
prior to those accidents were prior. So in the same time frame the year before, we actually had 12 crashes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we can follow up.
His accidents were after this change, coming out of his driveway, the side swipes.
Okay.
They may not have reported them to the police, but.
He may be,
be
whatever.
wrong.
Nonetheless, he's,
But just, and it's not, I'm not saying this is making it better, crash-wise, because there is a certain amount of fact that when there's a change, people tend to drive a little more careful during the change. So that's part of it, but there hasn't been an increase in accidents, that's for sure.
okay. I don't think we're going to resolve this tonight, but for the record, I want to say, I don't see that this is worth what we're creating for a problem.
That's the
just
question.
my opinion.
Well, I would say 200 more cars an hour has an environmental impact. It's a huge quality of life help for people, and there's a balance of interests in a lot of things we do.
Yep.
It's not a small country road anymore.
I didn't ask for a debate, I just stated my
Well,
opinion.
I
I just
offered
stated
my
my
opinion.
opinion.
can all
So we
offer our
have to
opinions.
figure out if
Not
there
just
are
you.
other options. You already had, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
There's got to be something done with signage as long as this is out there immediately. I want to consider this more and talk to you all more. I don't find out what Michael was asking about, if there's any option there, but I just think this is really, I think we've created added problems, and I'm not comfortable with it.
There is a tremendous benefit if there is a state opportunity.
Yeah.
The flip side of the coin, that involves time and process and
Yes.
design and.
A
you're
long
looking-
time in process.
That said, with our pending road improvement bond going before town meeting, there is a portion of money set aside within a component of that bond to overlay this portion of roadway and mark it appropriately, correctly, how this should be, if we want to do that. I guess that's where we're at. personally, from my standpoint, this is strictly a temporary
Right.
test pilot of, it clearly shows that it's achieving a flow and a volume to alleviate some sort of traffic. That said, I'd feel more comfortable putting it into play from a permanent feature or not, in getting this off and going back to what was there as a permanent feature. It's starting with a clean blackboard again. I mean,
Yeah.
but I do see the potential with the state. Again, it's going to be, regardless, that just doesn't click in, that's going to be a year and a half, 2 years out, more than likely, to get that funding and fast track it.
Can
So
you create visual renderings of what it would look like after money spent to make it permanent and put signage in, so we can start imagining and getting feedback from the neighbors on what, trying to envision what the permanent would be? I'm not sure it will help us, but
I know, it's just really essentially taking that picture and photoshopping it.
Yeah.
Is what we would do,
Yeah.
but we can certainly do that.
I think that's all I'm
Yeah.
asking for is, I think there's an issue as well that was highlighted about bicycle riders not being able to go. I mean, I don't know if Sharrow's become part of allowing it, but I mean, we have a policing issue. We have a huge policing issue here with people. Like, what I sense from all of this is we might gain things in the commuter hours, but what we're creating in the off-peak hours is, to me, where it sounds like we've created more of a hazard. I don't know if I'm processing that right. I want to think about it. I just, it
I agree
doesn't
with you.
feel right.
And it's almost like it's a common theme that we deal with in Public Works, is we're trying to solve a speeding issue with construction projects. And we've done that in the past, and to some degree, we've been successful, but quite frankly, Public Works is really not a speeding agency. You know, like, we have to, we
The
can
root
mitigate
root
with
issue here
signage.
is speed.
Right, signage helps for sure, but, I mean.
Yeah.
But Todd, what is your recommendation?
I always say, if you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it right. That's why I was, at first, putting this out there. You're putting out trying to find, for lack of better words, but not the A game of the product by any means. So, obviously, it's gonna look aesthetically like a bomb went off and not function like it would in real time with the real product out in the road. I guess I'm split either way. I don't, I'd like to see it put into play. If we're gonna do it, you put it into play the right way and really accommodate the concerns and have a policing presence out there, along with the right striping, along with the right signage, along with the right enhancements and features. I think if you're gonna miss any of that, then I think we go back to what we went with, because there's gonna be fingers pointed all over the place.
May I?
Go ahead.
Ken, if you go back to the first one we had, first slide.
Sure.
See, this is what makes me wonder. If you look and see how the red lines are here,
Yeah.
it makes me wonder if that's not the public right of way. And if it's on sale, it's on both sides, we might be able to widen it from a 1 foot to at least a 3 foot, perhaps a 5. Depends how much room there is.
Right away.
Yeah, that is the rough
Right away.
right-of-way line.
Yeah,
That is-
there's enough room there to.
Yeah, that is just keep in mind it's GIS.
Right, I'm
you
sure,
know.
yeah.
So the red.
It would have to be, I know,
The
it'd have to
red
be.
right here, it's the, right away.
Yeah, and so there could be enough room to solve their issues and the traffic issue.
It gets a little tricky at this
I
corner.
see that, yeah, there's a couple of
This
places.
little corner right here, you
Yeah.
know, but.
So, Paul, what can we do now?
Well-
What can we do?
From an enforcement standpoint, unfortunately, part of the problems with doing this, with having that 1 foot shoulder, is there's not many places that you can set up radar up there, because I've been up there.
I'm sure these people would let you set up somewhere near them.
Well, the problem is the radars that we have in the cruisers face forward and back.
Okay. it
So
won't work.
unless you get out of the car and do handheld, which you can do,
Mhm.
the downside is, if you're on the westbound side and you pull somebody over, there's no place to pull them over. There is no more shoulder. There's curbing on both sides. So it's.
Back to my original comment.
But we can do, we have sent officers up there, and unfortunately what they do, I'll be honest, they sit in a
Right.
driveway, they'll back into a driveway and they'll sit there and there'll be a presence. But there's not much radar enforcement going on because the radar is not facing the traffic.
But you know, sometimes the presence is just enough to stop.
No, sometimes it does.
No,
It's,
I agree with that. I
Yeah,
just want to
that's
say,
what happened
because
to
I
Dedham.
see it in Dedham.
Yep.
Okay, I'll acknowledge you, but you gotta use the microphone.
Oh, all right.
You want it?
I know exactly what you're saying, because I see it in Dedham. There's so many times you go over into Dedham and there's a police officer on the side there, just his car, forces everybody to think.
We have to go bigger,
I'll pass it on to the chief.
stronger, and more consistently right away, because this is in place today.
Right.
Okay. I think we have to come back and revisit this, find out a little more information on the
Right away.
right-of-way. What does that involve and what might the cost be? And we'll follow up with the chief tomorrow, and we'll have to continue this conversation.
And the only reason I know, Todd, about the grant is when I went to a AAA seminar and Stephanie Pollock spoke. She said they were going to have grants for pinch points within the state.
Okay.
And a whole bunch of grants were coming out to apply for them for the pinch points. And they know that 109 is one of the pinch points.
Sure.
So
I think from our standpoint then, as far as next steps, I'll consult with Beta, get a general scope together as far as first of all, what do we have to work with out there for right-of-way? And then developing a scope for the potential of, because even with the grant opportunities, it's still going to be a design on our lap to put
And if there's
forward.
any signage we can do to accompany what the police need to do now, we need to know about it, we need to do it. As
that
long as
sign
this is in place.
courteous to side traffic, we have plenty of those.
Well,
Anything.
I'm telling you, they work.
I mean,
Right.
I don't want to clutter your house frontage with signs, but I think we've got to do something while this is in place, and let's be creative. I know this isn't completely resolved tonight. It's going to be an ongoing discussion. I want to thank you all again for your comments tonight, and I know Todd knows where you are. I know you've been in touch with Todd, and we'll probably bring you back here soon. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to ask one question.
Yes.
Where I measured it at some points that there was a 6-inch gap as opposed to a foot shoulder. Is there a law or any restriction on how much gap? Because 6 inches seems kind of dangerous. And I don't know if there's a law or regulation that you can have a highway 6 inches from a sidewalk.
Ken?
The regulation is 1 foot shoulder, and I don't know where you measure the 6 inches.
I can show you.
Okay.
Please,
That
yeah.
part's along there.
Why don't
certainly-
you talk afterwards
Yeah.
if you would?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to have this come back to us as soon as possible with any developments that you may have. And Paul, if you can work with Chris and the chief and DPW on signage and monitoring it somehow to get the current situation addressed. And we'll see where we go. Ongoing discussion. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our finance team is still here.
Paul, my guess is one of the kids left that behind.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna,
if you want
I'll
to put
have
it
it
in
at the front
front,
desk.
yeah, that's my guess. One of the kids left it from the Sheehan School.
Oh, okay.
AirPod, yes.
Maybe, Paul, can you tell them to contact the principal at Martha Jones? Thank you. Okay, financial update.
It's ours? It's Collins.
Oh.
It's Collins.
Case solved.
Came out to let us know, it's $79 a piece. They're not gonna.
Okay. All right. Ms. Dukeman, get our minds on finances and town meeting and capital articles and all those good things.
Going to seem more fun tonight than
than normal. No, it's all
two
good.
things tonight. First, one item that we'd like you to address in the current year's budget, FY20 budget, we monitor the budget to actual
throughout
Yes.
the year. We give a budget to actual report monthly to the select board. We need to accommodate any budget fluctuations that happen during the year, either with a select board transfer or part of our budget supplement process at town meeting. So there are two items we would ask that the board tonight vote to transfer from your reserve account to the appropriate budgets to accommodate fluctuations that have occurred. So the two items total $37,600, with $30,000 for the select board salary to provide for a vacation payout that occurred during part of the staffing transition, and then $7,600 for the implementation of the teen librarian position to full-time in this budget year. The board approved that at a previous meeting.
And we said this would be the source.
Yes, the full year cost is $15,000, but because of the timing on when the staff came on board and the comparison to budget, $7,600 is needed for that. So that would be a total of $37,600 from your reserve account. Those are the first transfers that you would make in this year against
Any
that
questions of
No.
Pam on this?
No.
John? Okay, motion?
I move that we approve the transfers of $37,600 to the accounts as listed on the attached materials from the reserve account, specifically $30,000 to supplement the select board salary budget and $7,600 to supplement the full-time teen librarian, to be used to balance those accounts for the fiscal '20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none, okay.
Thank you. And then just continuing on in your FY21 budget process, just a reminder with this slide, and there's a presentation in front of you. It does reflect the material that was in your packet this week. Continuing, you've been looking for several months now at various financial material. We're heading into the final phase of this part of the budget where we're coming out with proposed budgets by February 1 that we would then be able to produce our books, get those to the Finance and Warrant Commission for them to start their review process. This next slide looks at state aid, and I just want to point out a reminder of where we are with state aid. In the current year, our state aid, $6.4 million, shown in the green. The majority of our state aid comes in the Chapter 70. About $5.5 million of that is Chapter 70 education aid. We are awaiting word on what the FY21 state aid will be. The governor is doing the State of the State address tonight and will come out with his budget tomorrow. So we will be looking to see what will be our increase in state aid, that we can incorporate that into the '21 budget. We'll be able to come back at your next meeting next week and give you a quick update on that. As you know, they're making changes to the Chapter 70 education formula.
Right.
We do not anticipate that that's going to be significant revenue for Westwood, but I do think it'll be more than it's been the last couple of years, the increase. We've had very limited increase over the last couple of years in state aid, but that will be an interesting number for us to see. You'll remember from earlier presentations, we were looking at what we had available in our tax levy, utilizing our levy under 2.5, trying to not use the additional revenue from University Station. And we'll need to see what we get in state aid to see what will be our levy use to balance the budget items. So we'll have an update for you on that after tomorrow. And then just looking at the budgets, and I was just going to go in the order of articles, because as we go next week to the FinCom, we'll start to go through in this format. Each year we do the first two articles at town meeting, do any cleanup that we need for the current year FY20 budget. Article 1, transferring from one budget to another, and Article 2, supplementing budgets with any additional revenue such as free cash if needed. So we typically have you finalize these articles in early March to get to the FinCom by the end of March for their public hearings. So we try to get a little bit further into the year to know what we will need to really adjust all of our budgets. Typically, the significant dollar item on this list might be a snow and ice adjustment. We won't speak about that right now. But I did want to point out the bottom bullet there. Sometimes we do any kind of one-off items that might come up during the budget process as part of Article 2. And we do have one this year. When working with the schools on their budget development for FY21, they are looking at kind of uncertainty with one area of the special education budget where they might need some additional funds, but it's really not a certainty. And we don't like to build in kind of unknown numbers into the ongoing budget. We like to try to treat those differently. So we are looking to do a $350,000 transfer in Article 2 from free cash to the school special education reserve account. That's the account that was set up a couple of years ago at town meeting. This would allow those funds to be set aside in case they're needed, but it would not roll them into the ongoing school budget in case they're not needed. As the board's aware, to utilize money in that special education reserve fund requires during the year a vote by both the school committee and then the select board. So this would set aside money into that account, but then there's a approval process during the year in order for the schools to utilize that funding.
And what if they don't use it, Pam? Does it stay in the account or does it go back?
And it stays in the account if it's not needed, and then would be there in future years. They're just having a little bit of fluctuation in a couple of accounts. They're unclear if they'll need the money, but don't want to be left short during the year if not. And I think this way puts it into the account. There's an appropriate review process and a voted approval process by the two boards in town to utilize it. So it would be a way to handle that. Again, not building it in into the ongoing budget if it's not really necessary. Article 3 would be the main operating budget for the town, the municipal and school departments. Right now, that budget, $98.4 million, or a 3.9% increase over the current year. The table shows the increases by the various categories. With the largest increase we've talked before in that fixed cost category, which is where we have our health insurance and pension costs. We have now moved the trash budget into that category because we've been talking about the difficulties with the recycling budget and how we'll perhaps need to handle that going forward. The pie chart shows the makeup by category of the operating budget, with the school budget being the largest in blue there, just over $48 million.
Pam, the two operating budgets, though, that's much higher than where we've been.
It is a little bit higher. So the school budget at 3.9, and I believe they talked about the budget at the school committee meeting, at their last meeting, and we'll be doing further at an upcoming meeting. Their ongoing budget increase is about 3.6%. Also included in this number, if you recall, last year, the state budget was not finalized at the time of town meeting. We received subsequent to town meeting an increase in the Chapter 70 of about $160,000, which normally we would have voted to the school budget. Where we did not have a fall meeting, there was no opportunity to appropriate additional funding. And what was discussed was that we could not do that in the FY20 budget, but we would add that $160,000 to their base for the FY21. So that's what's reflected in that 3.9%. It's about a 3.6% increase and an additional
So
$160,000.
it's 3.6, then you add that money and it gets
Yes.
to 3, okay.
Can we do 2 lines to each of those budgets to show the ongoing and that
That's a great
special
idea.
item?
I will do that, yes.
Because as John pointed out, we're
Looks like,
hearing
yeah.
different percentages, and there's a good reason why it's different. So
Yes.
just
Right, and then the municipal is also higher. What's driving that?
Yes. And so I have on the next page kind of
Okay.
the municipal. It is a big higher, and it's a big higher than the target. We were going for the 3% targets on both the municipal and school. Last year, we ended up at about 3.5, and these are both, a notch even above that. So on the municipal, the overall budget increase, $805,000, or about 3.8%. And again, this now is without the trash budget included. You can see by the categories that the salary increase is 3.2. It's a very base budget on the salary side. No new positions. That salary increase reflects contractual obligations and kind of our standard salary increases. It is on the expense side that there are a couple of items driving that up. We have a total 6.3% increase, with $282,000 on the expense side. The one item, the largest increase, we talked about at your last meeting, is in the area of building maintenance, about $90,000 being added to the building maintenance account. We have brought newer, larger buildings online, and we need to just expand what we're doing to make sure that we're maintaining these buildings at a high level. We also have $65,000 in software licensing costs. So as more departments kind of automate and do more things online, we do have kind of associated annual costs with that. An example is this year, the economic development departments have gone to e-permitting system, where now all of the building permits and other kind of permits can be gotten online. It helps reduce the traffic into our buildings. It's easier for people to kind of get a permit and pay for a permit online. There's software behind that that does have some annual ongoing requirements. And then labor council and election cycle increases because of the activity anticipated in the upcoming year. So 3.8, a bit higher than what we were looking at normally, closer to 3.5. The next articles are the series of capital budget articles. And we start first with the municipal capital. A listing of items totaling $1.3 million, reach a wide variety of departments: Council on Aging, DPW, Fire, Police, and Library with a small amount. This compares in our current budget. We had $1.3 million. This is a similar level to what we're trying to do each year in the municipal capital. So pretty much a standard listing of the various equipment rollover, building maintenance, IT issues. I will point out the one item here, about halfway down, the fire department. We have replaced the $400,000 request for the swap body truck with a $20,000 town match. As the chief talked to the board about looking at grant opportunity to fund that piece of equipment. So instead of the town needing $400,000, if he were successful with the grant, we would need $20,000 as our share. So that's been included in this list, but would not be enough to do the whole purchase if the grant opportunity did not arise.
And Pam, what is the, above that, though, fire replace engines too?
So that is the $226,000?
Correct.
Yeah. So that is, a couple of years ago, we purchased 2 new large engines, over $1 million for the combined, and we leased them over a 5-year period. So we're kind of just running the lease payment through here. So this is year 4, and we'll just have 1 more year of this similar amount, and then that will be completed.
And is the WAHA amount, the building maintenance and improvement, up?
It is up. We've had 2 years for $100,000.
That's what I thought.
And this year is $150,000, and then they would go back to the $100,000.
They have something in particular with one house?
This $150,000 would be for the
Did they just
building on
purchase-
109, the original red brick building, the original Obed Baker.
Oh, down 109 where the
The
new.
blue
house down 109.
So do they need something?
Yes, they had.
Significant? I mean, it's been, what, 16 years since that
Yes.
house was built?
Yes.
So they had the assessment on what needs to be done. This particularly would be for that facility and the landscape.
So the
and-
100 wouldn't be sufficient to cover that and do their ongoing maintenance with other
Correct.
houses?
Yes.
Okay.
And that article would be funded with free cash, as it was done in the prior year, and as we showed in kind of our original budget projections. The next article would be the school capital article, just over $1 million. And this listing has now been updated by the schools for what they would allocate to each of their kind of standard line items. Again, this is the same level that they have in the current year budget and the level that we're trying to meet each year for school capital. This would also be funded with free cash as it is in the prior year. The next page shows at the top 4 items to be funded for sewer capital, and those are funded with sewer retained earnings account. And at the bottom, we just usually segregate out equipment that's funded with ambulance revenue. There's just some of the small standard equipment this year, just under $65,000. The next capital article would be the road improvement bond. $4.65 million. And you've had Todd in and gone through the various components there. But the Route 109 work, the town-wide crosswalks and safety improvements, and the intersection of Winter and Clapboard Tree, and the $900,000 for the paving preservation, kind of a supplement to the annual Chapter 90. That would be funded by a 10-year bond issued within 2.5. That bond would come online as a previous DPW bond that we issued in 2012 is retiring. So it could replace that within. And then at the bottom, we had one piece of equipment with the DPW, $325,000 for a very large dump truck. That's kind of larger than the normal piece we can fund within our municipal article. And as we're doing the road bond, I would propose that this, we authorize a borrowing for this equipment. We would do a very short-term number of years, less than a 5-year period, but it would help us smooth that piece into our budget better than we could try to do within our standard article. And then the final slide on the capital, as we've done the last 3 years now, I believe, we have tried to supplement the ongoing capital to kind of make up for those years where we were not fully funding capital with some additional projects. So the article at the top lists various projects totaling $1.1 million, that the funding source would be free cash.
So Chris, the building maintenance town hall improvements,
Yes.
I'm assuming we're going to wait and see what happens with the school project and understand.
Well, we still have a number of improvements to make in Town Hall. We have some accessibility issues that we need to address regardless of what happens with the school project. And we also have just some general upgrades within Town Hall, HVAC units, as well as some of the restrooms as well.
Okay, wouldn't it be better to wait and see what departments are going where, whether we can replace? I'm just nervous that we're just kind of jumping into this. I mean, this is new. We haven't really spent much time talking about this.
Well, we don't know yet. We're not going to know until June what the school's going to do.
Right.
So trying to get ahead and dealing with design on what we're going to have to do with
Can
this
we
building,
get like
regardless
what
of
you're
who's in the
thinking though?
building.
Like I
Sure.
just,
Sure, we can certainly break it out. You want to break out?
because
of
there's
what we're
some
looking at?
projects going on now in town hall, correct?
There's
I see some construction on the second floor.
Well, there's some movement that will happen within Town Hall to bring.
I just
the
like to
frontline
understand what
officers to the
300
first
is
floor.
buying us. Can I-
HVAC, the heating system is beyond its useful life, and regardless of who's in here, we're still going to need that heating system to operate. And so, but again, I can certainly provide you with a breakdown of what that 300,000 is.
I believe it's as well some bathroom renovations.
Yes.
You know, the work
pretty
that's,
sad
the work
shape.
that's being done now, we already approved. We already approved money for that, right? The work that's being done now, we've already approved that in our prior budget.
The kind of moving around was, we budgeted
Right.
Last year.
Last year, yeah.
That was 50?
50.
Yes.
Okay.
And we do, the discussion on capital budget items always continues, longer. We have this February 1 deadline to kind of get out initial material. We're always continuing to update, particularly on the capital. The article at the bottom is some other additional projects, kind of the recreation-type projects, like we've done in the last couple of years, that this we would propose to fund with the meals and hotel tax as the funding source.
And what's the field lighting / turf field project? What's the plan there?
We have, so originally we had the Thurston Lights there. Nicole, Todd has been involved in it, and our consultants were looking at just other fields as well. So we have behind First Parish, and there's some other fields that have been identified that we're looking into to figure out where the best use of those dollars would go.
Okay.
So we're trying to keep the options open.
So we know we're in a little bit of a deficit with the lodge offline. We're going to be at least have some fields at one site offline. So this is approved hypothetically at town meeting. Like it sounds like we're just in this discussion theoretical phase. At what point will we make a decision?
Well, I will come back, Pam and I will come back with a recommendation after we speak with Nicole and we speak with our consultants.
So before we get to town, before we get through the FinCom
definitely
process.
before. Yes, definitely before.
And I'm fine if it's after that. I just wanted to put a deadline. I mean, I'm fine if it goes like this, but I just,
Well, I mean, for Finance Commission to opine on it, they'll probably want to know more
Yes.
details.
Okay.
Go ahead, Michael.
So, Pam, I'm just wondering, we have the schools and the municipal security projects. I haven't really seen anything, and I don't know if they exist, what recommendations were made. I know they were doing an assessment at one point in time, and I'm just wondering, did they ever come up with a final?
Schools?
Well, for the schools and municipals on there, so I don't know if that's just a study, or is that more than that? Do you know what I mean?
The schools are underway.
Right.
When the study was done, the schools kind of went first
Right.
in priority,
Sure.
and they got
And
their
I get it,
assessment.
yeah, of course.
And they have been working through the first priority off that list.
So I guess my question, maybe my real question is this for actual work to be done, or is this more studies?
This is work to be done.
Okay.
If you recall, the schools, we, in Article 2 at last year's town meeting, provided $100,000. And they have been well working through.
Okay.
You know, it would be great if we can, for Monday, for next Tuesday's meeting, before we go to Finance Commission, we're supposed to meet for an hour. If we could have more detail on this whole cluster of 6 items, just so, because I'm aware of some, I think we hear different things at different times, and we all need to be at the same
Yeah.
place before we go in and
Perfect.
talk to,
Just so we can answer
Finance
questions
Commission.
intelligently.
And we don't typically, at the end of January meeting with FinCom,
Have
go
all the
through in
Right.
detail
Yeah.
no, I get it.
on the capital. But we do like to just kind of lay out what's being looked at.
and if we could,
Right.
yeah, if we could be hearing more, because I look at the fire station one and I think, okay, what does that mean? And even if we touch on it a little bit, we're going to be asked questions. So as long as we can articulate where we are with it right now and what still needs to be done, but it wouldn't be appropriate for not all 3 of us to be up to speed. So I think that'd be a good use of 10 or 15 minutes next Monday before we go into Finance Commission.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good question, Michael, because my memory was, I remember talking about this, but I don't remember if we did them together or separately.
Yeah, the schools got out, the
First,
security.
right?
The
And then we
schools
did-
have been doing
yeah,
a lot more work. So that asks for, what is it, that the municipal piece is
They've
for.
been very pleased with the funding. They feel like they're getting
Right.
things done and in place.
Yeah, I mean, it just helps that we know so that we can convey to, other people that, yes, we're fully behind it, we know what's happening. But I couldn't tell you one thing that they're doing for the security,
It's
other than we funded it.
difficult for them to discuss all the items.
I get it, yes.
But they can be categorized or, and just merely even updating us, as I said, I think it's come out in our budget steering committee meetings, but the fact that they have been using that money, they do have some action items to implement is newsworthy. So to the extent we can just peel a little bit more back from that, I think it'd be really good. Okay, thank you.
And then just the stabilization would be another article, just our standard $125,000 transfer from free cash into the account to keep us ongoing with target, a similar amount that we did this year. And then the final article would be the OPEB liability, 1.465 million appropriation into the trust account. That's on target.
When do they recalculate that again?
It's happening now.
It is, okay.
We should have that within the next month.
So it could be up or
But
down?
this is our planned funding target right now. Our schedule is a $25,000 increase a year, and so this is on target with that.
Okay, thank you.
So our next steps, we will look for the governor's budget coming out tomorrow and make sure we give you a quick update on that. We will start to produce the budget books. So with your approval, we would go forward with the municipal budget document. We would like to do that one this week. We will give that one final scrub before going out, but the maximum amount it would be is what you've seen here. We'd like to get that out this week, and then we would look after your meeting next week to do the overall budget, where we could incorporate more the capital level of funding.
You okay with Pam proceeding?
Yes.
Are you okay?
Okay, great. And then we go to the FinCom on February 11th to start going through that with them. So we could walk through, after your meeting next week with the FinCom, the articles at a higher level, and then February 11th, we go through everything with them, talking about the taxes and state aid and how it all fits together.
Yeah. I feel that the change that we've gone through with capital to have more of the discussions, and what you've been doing the fall through now has helped move those discussions along, even though we still have more work to do. And I think that's a positive development, and that's why I think it's good that we start previewing this with the Finance Commission, because in the past, we were waiting until late February, early March, and really not giving them much to chew on until it was pretty late in their process. So I'm glad we can do that sooner. And I just want to say, maybe again for next week, we spoke offline about a road acceptance article. We didn't include it like we normally do. If you think that that might have something and we want to take a miscellaneous article, we should do that at our meeting next Tuesday before we go into Finance Commission and have it on the list going to them, that they get in advance. Because
You can always take it back off again, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
But we didn't preview it with them, and I'd like them to see that, you should put it on and say, we think there's something, we don't think there's something, whatever we want the update to be, but get it back on. So we have that option. One of the reasons we hold miscellaneous articles. One of the few reasons. Okay, anything else you need to hear from us, Pam?
That's it. Great, thank you.
Thank you,
Pam.
thank you, team, for joining Pam tonight. And thank you for all your work.
You guys are so good, you always come.
Well, they do
That
a lot of
support.
work behind the scenes, so it's great that you hear the discussion firsthand, and thank you. Okay, we have one more regular agenda item under new business. Last time we met, we spoke about thinking that Chris could represent us at the Mass Municipal Association Annual Business Meeting, which will occur this Saturday. And as it turns out, he is there, but at a different meeting. Will not be able to represent us. Mr. Walsh is there as secretary to the Mass Municipal Association Select Board, whatever.
We'll be the select board on Saturday when we take the vote. Right now, it's
Yeah.
still Selectmen Association.
And so he'll be present already?
Yes.
And we can just vote that he have our proxy.
I can't go anyway, so
Yeah.
thanks for going.
Okay, so.
I get to hold up the card, that's all.
You do. Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. Can I read it?
Yes,
Sorry.
why don't you do the action?
Okay.
Actual motion.
I move that the Select Board authorize Michael Walsh to vote on the town's behalf at the 2020 Massachusetts Municipal Association Annual Business Meeting to be held on January 25th, 2020.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
No, you can vote.
Okay. I vote in favor of me.
Okay, all in favor? No
Aye.
opposed? Aye. Aye? Okay,
Do you
we're
wanna
all.
hold the card?
That's all you do. You register, and then you hold up a card when they ask
Oh,
the
we
questions.
appreciate that.
Do it well, Mr. Wall.
Yes. It's Saturday morning, so there's a lot of
I guess we have in our
cloudy
packet.
eyes, shall we say.
Oh, I see under old business. Oh, I thought we were almost done, but
No,
not
not
quite,
quite.
ladies and gentlemen. I jumped the gun when talking about the road articles. So Mr. Ahern, you're here from the planning board.
I am.
Maybe, let me just start, and maybe you can give us a brief update if there's anything worth telling us.
Yeah, the planning board pulled 4, maybe 5, I don't remember about. So looking at the planning board articles,
Yes.
amendment to open space residential development bylaw was pulled. New residential construction temporary moratorium was pulled. New affordability requirement was pulled. And the zoning amendment relative to energy efficient was pulled based on your work with WEAC. So I don't recall, because we were there for a long time, about the short-term rental, if that got officially pulled or not. That may
Okay.
still be in
You'll
the
let us
queue.
up.
But the bottom 4 have been pulled from consideration.
So again, Tuesday before, that might be something worth doing if they have formally asked us to withdraw them. If not, we'll do it at a future meeting.
So, Morrison Park is still in?
Still in.
Okay.
All right.
So, Madam Chair, if I just
Yes.
be clear, so what's identified here is planning board 6, 7, and 8, and 9 have been
Correct.
pulled.
That's my
But we
memory,
don't have
yes.
the official word from the
We
planning
don't
board.
have the
Okay.
official
Well, thank you.
request to withdraw, but Nora's here. She'll let us know through Abby and,
Official notification to follow.
right.
My memory is that they officially voted on each one of those to pull
Okay.
them.
So if you find you want us to do that Tuesday night before we go into Finance Commission, so it's official going in there for the planning board, let us know. And we have our articles. I'm glad to hear we don't have dual energy articles going in, because that just created
And that was part of the
confusion.
discussion tonight. We didn't want to confuse the public with dueling energy articles.
Yeah, trying to achieve the same ultimate goal, I think. Okay, so we have, I guess I want to point out to the board, we have the WEAC asking for certain language that's somewhat different than we have reviewed in the past. And the question is, do we want to allow that to proceed, or do we want to amend it? To date, we've been going this path jointly, which to date hasn't been all that long. I think ultimately they've removed any reference to renovations.
Okay.
Well, yes.
If I'm reading this right. So
That's
it's
my
back to
reading of it,
rebuild,
yes.
Which is what I had thought it was supposed to be earlier, so that's good. I'm not sure what changing offsetting energy to offsetting renewable energy means, so I'd like to know that from them, what that change means.
I have a problem with the next paragraph.
Number 4?
No, the same next paragraph, that's all, where you were, renewable energy. Paragraph underneath. If it's a non-binding resolution, why are we putting the word shall
Yes.
in a non-binding resolution?
I think that's
Has
where...
to be removed. It's legal term says you must.
Right.
But it's not binding.
I know, but
I think that's a
That's a
contradiction.
contradiction, is what I'm saying. If it's non-binding,
question
shall
for
is a
this
word
board.
that
Do
has
we
legal
want to-
significance.
That's,
So I think if you just take out the word, it still makes sense. Westwood be designed, buildings in Westwood be designed.
Or you could add the word may.
May, yeah, I mean, they're looking for something stronger, but shall says you must. So for a non-binding referendum to have the word shall is just
I like
an
removing the word.
Right, just remove the word.
It's your call. I mean,
Yeah.
That's my question for this board. Do we want to override that?
I think we need to override that, just from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to do that? Or
You do.
Okay.
Why don't you make a motion, Mr.
I
Walsh?
move that on the revised article put forth by WEAC regarding non-binding resolution on net zero energy for school and municipal building construction, that the word shall be stricken from the last paragraph, and that the new wording be read as, now therefore be it resolved that construction of all new schools and municipal buildings in Westwood be designed with the goal of achieving net zero energy consumption and net zero greenhouse gas emissions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Okay, that
Couldn't
was
agree
that was the only real change I had. I
Okay.
appreciate you adding the pending inclement weather in.
Okay, yeah, so we have overnight parking restrictions. The way that has now evolved is that the article expands the time for parking restriction, but it's now subject to inclement weather conditions that require snow and ice treatment.
Yeah.
And that's been discussed with the police department,
Yes.
Yeah.
legal counsel,
Yes.
Yeah.
town administrator.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so we'll
I
bring that
appreciate
forward.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned earlier, and I should have here with this section, if we add the acceptance of any
Yes.
private roads be added to our list. And where are we, Chris and Pat, on the fire alarm system regulations article? Is that still in discussion?
Yes. We have a situation where the fire marshals in Boston believe we can do it. I'm not sure the building code people think we can. So it's kind of a battle of jurisdiction at the state level at this point in time. I've had a talk with the chief about it. The chief is willing to pull it if we can't get a favorable response from the building code people. Mr. Doyle's working with his regional person, and we're waiting to hear from her whether or not we can do it from the building code perspective.
What might be nice is, instead of talking in vague terms with the Finance Commission, if we could have a printed paragraph on the status of this, and just, if it's still in process, just stating what we're looking at, and that's it. That's all we have to give them.
I'm hopeful that we have an answer. And if the building code people say we can't do it, the chief's willing to
I'm
pull
just-
the warrant article.
Okay, but if we don't have that answer by Tuesday, can we have something in writing that we can just say to
I
FinCom,
will
that's
do
where it
my
is?
best.
Thank you. Any questions on
I have
anything
a
else?
couple. On Select Board 5, Pat, so I just want to be clear. On the LifeWorks property, we own the land and we will.
Okay, you have to let me leave for this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Well, you know what? Let me do the other one first then.
Go ahead.
And then I'll do the second one. Sorry, I forgot about that. In Budget 7, what's the, I should have asked Pam, which was, may split into several articles. What's the driver of that?
I'm looking for it.
Funding. Funding sources, so
Yeah,
as she
funding
was going
sources.
through it.
She goes with the fire, the ambulance receipts, John, and then the sewer retained earnings to pay for those.
Yeah,
They usually split them up.
But it's also meals tax and hotel tax
Right, as to where the money comes from.
one vote and free cash, separate vote, and then it's
So you vote
primarily
the
funding source.
appropriation, and you vote the source of the appropriation.
Oh, I don't remember doing that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's all right. I can talk to Pat offline on my other one.
Just
I
like,
don't have to
just
leave.
like number on page
All right,
9,
so
John.
I just don't want to.
They do it different ways.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
We can talk offline.
Anything?
No,
okay,
I don't have anything
nothing
else.
beyond that. And we have minutes, Tish, from our last meeting. We're going to stay caught up so we don't have a backlog occur. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, these are minutes from January 6th, our last meeting. And just reminds me, when's Dottie coming in to talk to us? In February?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I have no edits on this.
I didn't have any.
Okay, motion?
I move that we approve the Select Board minutes of February 6th, 2020, consisting of 7 pages as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none.
Thank you.
As I've mentioned earlier, our next meeting is going to occur next week.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday at the library, starting at 6:30 is what we're scheduled to do. Can you both make that?
Yeah.
Okay, so 6:30, Tuesday, January 28th, at the smaller meeting room in the library. And then we will adjourn from that meeting into the Finance Commission meeting for those who can attend. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Excuse me, Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I just say one thing?
Public and Press and Town Administrator.
Thank you. I just want to thank the board on behalf of Pam and myself for the beautiful swearing-in ceremony that took place last week. I think I can speak on behalf of Pam. We were both very humbled, very thankful for what the board has done, so thank you very much.
That was a nice night, and
It
it
was
was
a very
great
nice
having.
night, yes.
You're entirely welcome, Chris.
You're welcome. Good, you learned that one. It was really nice to have so many different people together, family, friends, former work colleagues, people from the community. It was really nice, so I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Good night.